Good morning, and thank you for joining our webinar this morning. Our topic today is upholstery cleaning, the fundamentals of it. It's a large topic, and it's probably a bit ambitious to think that we can cover off such a subject just in a short webinar such as this morning. But I do hope we can share something with you that gives you a good overview of it and provide some tips from many years of experience and how Actichem fits into the process. As many would know, and for those who've known me, I'm very strong on the principles that go on behind cleaning. And it is never as more important as it is for upholstery cleaning, and that is to understand the three key principles that go into cleaning over and above the cleaning pie. So what I'm referring to is having a thorough knowledge of the substrate, having a thorough knowledge of the soiling, and then having a thorough knowledge of your cleaning tools and chemistry that you use to remove the soiling and treat the fabrics. So in upholstery cleaning, it is extremely important to have a handle on these. It is crucial that we understand the substrate in this field, which of course includes a lot of delicate fabrics, includes a lot of synthetic fabrics, delicate dyes, delicate fibers, and then onto knowing the various soiling and staining that is typical to upholstery, what is the best chemistry to remove it, but also what impact it can have on the fabrics and the fibers that we're discussing, and then understanding the strengths and the limitations of the cleaning chemistry and the equipment that we have on board. So we'll discuss upholstery cleaning this morning, giving you hopefully a good overview of it. Now, do remember, as always, we follow these webinars with a white paper. You will also be given access automatically to the recording of this webinar. You can go back and use it as a training tool for your staff. So we're looking forward to getting your feedback. We love feedback and we'd appreciate it. And also just remember that there is a question button at the bottom of your screen. Please put through some questions as we're going along, and we will attempt to answer them at the end of this time. So we'll start off with what is upholstery, and just to run over the basic fibers and fabrics that we find in upholstery. The first one is natural fibers. This covers quite a vast range and is the cause of most of our challenges and heartaches and trouble when we come to cleaning upholstery. Includes things like cotton and linen, of course, Haitian cotton, and we've got wools, rayon and viscose fall into that as well. Some refer to them as synthetic fibers. We keep them in the natural fiber area because that's the root of them and they need to be treated as such. Silk, of course. Then there is synthetic fibers, mainly polyesters and acrylics, some nylons, a lot of polyolefins or polypropylenes found in commercial upholstery, and of course then blended fibers. Blended fibers are often used to improve the strength of the fabric and alter or modify its feel as well, its hand. That is a term that is used in upholstery, the hand of the fabric, which is the feel, how soft, what it feels like. And then lastly, there is leather. Leather is quite a big subject. It really almost needs a webinar on its own, but we have included it because a lot of upholstery that you guys are tackling out there is in fact leather of some description. So having a look at natural fibers. Natural fibers, predominantly what we see is some form of cotton in upholstery. On the one end, we have Haitian cotton and even linen, which is very, very susceptible to water marking, browning, some linen will brown just when it gets water on it, just no matter how long, very, very susceptible to it. So it does require a lot of skill in how we handle it, how we clean it. We have regular cottons and wools, of course, jacquards, and silk. Silk is a interesting one. Silk is actually a very strong fiber. It is a very robust fiber, but its dyes are the problem. So we need to be very careful of dyes in that respect. And then, of course, we spoke about the viscose and rayon, which are in many respects one and the same thing. They refer to as the sausage fiber of the industry because they really are a bastardized fiber, um, and are a very difficult fiber to clean. There's a lot of troubles with them. They're very weak when they get wet, very susceptible to cleaning damage. If there's ever an opportunity to pass off a viscose fiber cleaning operation, you're often better off doing it, to be honest. Either that or make sure you know what you're doing. Make sure you know what you're doing and make sure you're getting a good price for it. And make sure that you pre-qualify to the customer before you start. One of the crucial things is chemistry, obviously, is our strong point, and we certainly commit ourselves and pride ourselves in providing the best chemistry to the market. But even using the best chemistry, you can still go wrong. So make sure that you've got training up to date. Make sure that your techs know what they're doing. With upholstery, especially this natural fibers, there's not a lot of forgiveness in it. So as a rule of thumb, mild acids are the way to go. They are the ones that are going to be needed to keep the strength of the fibers and prevent browning and keep your dye stable. Avoid alkalinity at all costs. Remember as well that these natural fibers are often very absorbent, so they'll absorb a lot more moisture than synthetic fibers. Synthetic fibers are predominantly acrylics and polyesters. There's a lot of nylons on the market as well, and a lot of polypropylenes or polyolefins or olefins. They're all one and the same thing that are found in commercial seating. So commercial seating may be conference chairs, cinema chairs. They're fairly easy to clean. Synthetic fibers are a lot less absorbent than natural fibers, and mostly the dyes are a lot more stable. However, there is still some unstable dyes in synthetic fibers, especially those with acid dyes. So always make sure that you pre-test. In terms of protection, which I should have mentioned on the previous slide, is with synthetic fibers, the water-based fabric shield RTU is the way to go. On natural fibers, we prefer the solvent-based. That's a fabric shield SV. So natural fibers respond a lot better to a solvent-based protector. It helps overcome the dangers of browning, water spotting, and also is better for the dyes as well. Blended fibers, always treat a blended fiber as with carpet, always treat it as per the most delicate fiber in the blend. Often you will have acrylics and cottons blended together. There is many, sometimes you may have 3, sometimes 4 different blends. Unfortunately, a lot of blends include viscose, so you have to treat it as if it's a viscose. So remember to treat the blend as per its most delicate fiber, and you're lucky if the blend is a complete wholly synthetic blend, then you can treat it as a synthetic. So as with the protection, treat it once again as per, if it's got any natural fibers in it, make sure that you use the solvent-based protector. If it's wholly synthetic, you can use the water-based protector. Leather is a big subject, as we said, and the cleaning of it can be quite a challenge. There is basically 2 broad divisions in leather. One is your raw raw type of leather, suedes and aniline leather, which can darken very easily with cleaning solutions and anything that's got any oils in it. So we absolutely need to make sure that we understand what type of leather we're cleaning. Not worth taking any risks, because if you get it wrong with leather, very, very difficult to reverse, if at all. And then there is the protected leather, which is somewhat more robust and easier to clean. But the critical things again is keep clear of alkalinity and acids or leather creams, depending on what type of leather it is. But just to reiterate, the first key step is make sure you know which leather you're dealing with, and make sure you have the techniques and the skill and the correct chemicals to tackle it. Other than that, walk away from it, because it's not worth the risk. A lot of these leather lounges are worth a lot of money. We've got a table there which runs through the different, most common types of fabrics and fibers found in upholstery, mostly typical to the Australian market, but got a fair global representation, really. So we'll provide that table as a separate chart, which you're able to print out and have as a reference. But that runs through the various types of fabrics and fibers that we've just spoken about. A couple of points. We've spoken about cottons and linens and wool and silk, these delicate ones, viscose and rayon. Remember that things like velvets are not necessarily always natural fiber. Velvets can be made from natural fibers or synthetics. The velvet relates to the finish on the fiber, not the type of the yarn. So that affects as to what your cleaning chemistry is going to be, but more so also the way that you finish it. In terms of making sure that you leave no residue in the velvet fiber, and that you align the fibers while it is drying so they don't mat, and so you're able to retain that correct appearance that the client is looking for. So you need to also just understand some of the finishes that are on these upholstery. I really recommend that you do some research into it. Really recommend that you do some research into each of these fibers. We provided you a good overview of them, but make sure that you do your own research, and also to ensure that you've got some handle on the RRCRC standards. And if there's ever an opportunity to take any of their courses, seriously recommend that you do it. Upholstery is one very, very clear example where training sets you apart from the pack. Speaking to an operator in Melbourne last week, they only do high-end upholstery. We're talking about a lot of couches worth $30,000, $40,000. They knock back people that try and ask them in relation to cheap prices or wanting to compare their prices with others. Just not worth it. They are only into the expensive stuff. They've got a thriving business, so there's good money to be made out of it. The good thing about that particular conversation was that they only use Actichem products, a lot of upholstery, end-cap fine fabric, and Conquer Performance Plus. So it's a good shout out to Actichem that these products have been used on expensive items of furniture and coming up with good results. There's two key things that we need to discuss in relation to upholstery before we go on to how to get about cleaning them, and we've touched on them already, but the first one is moisture control and drying. So if there's one thing that you need to master and drill into your team, it's about moisture control and drying in terms of fabrics. The number one rule is, no matter what upholstery it is, even synthetic, you can't afford to get it too wet. Remember that most of the upholstery is not much thicker than the shirt you're wearing, than the fabric on the shirt you're wearing. So we're used to putting a lot of water, really, a lot of moisture really into carpets, but you only need a tiny bit of moisture when you come to cleaning upholstery. And not only do we sit with the dangers of excess moisture in delicate substrates, but also even in synthetic, the moisture goes straight through to the backing, seeps far into the cushioning, and very, very difficult to remove it. One skill I've seen some technicians use, which I really like, is on your upholstery tool, and some of these upholstery tools pump out far too much water in my estimation, penetrates far too far into the upholstery, is they'll actually hold the upholstery tool about a ruler's length or half a ruler's length away from the fabric when they're applying the moisture onto the fabric. So it is taking that amount of moisture and spreading it over maybe 2 or 3 times the width of the fabric that it would normally get onto. So firstly, there's a lot less pressure forcing the moisture through the fabric. And secondly, you're getting a lot less moisture on the fabric. So that's one skill that I'd really recommend you have a look at. Then, of course, there's various other skills in relation to minimizing moisture, and we'll discuss those where we don't use the hand tool moisture at all. But the dangers of it is cellulosic browning, especially with linen, cotton, Haitian cotton, and then dye bleed is the second one. These are dangers, especially with cotton again, but with silk and viscose. Viscose and loses a lot of its strength when it's wet, along with the danger of shrinkage and distortion. And then the whole slow drying situation, as I said, with moisture that's still sitting in the cushioning behind the upholstery, leads to water spotting, cellulosic browning, and of course even just mold and mildew. Seen some pretty bad cases out there of that. That should never happen to any professional technician. Then the second one is pH. Ensure that your technicians understand the basics of pH if they're going to be cleaning upholstery. In terms of natural upholstery, we need to keep it on the acid side, not strongly acidic. We always use organic acids, which are a lot kinder to natural fibers. So typically the pH is sitting somewhere between 4.5 and 6.5, somewhere in that region. With synthetic fibers, polypropylenes especially, we can afford to go higher, but we need to ensure that we pull that pH back down to a neutral level before we finish up. So the first process that we'll discuss is the wet method, and this is used on fabrics and fibers that can handle moisture, and we always need to remember to pre-vacuum. You say, oh, well, I thought that pre-vacuuming is only needed on carpets. Well, that's absolutely right. We know that pre-vacuuming is needed on carpets. 80% of our soiling on carpets especially is not dissolvable in our cleaning solution, so we need to get that off dry. But pre-vacuuming is super important on upholstery too, especially, and I say especially on houses that have had pets in. There's a lot of hair, pet hair, and fluff and particles from clothing, and even particulate soiling that lands up on his upholstery. If you can get that off dry, you set yourself seriously ahead before you start adding the moisture into the system. So do a good pre-vacuum. Don't miss it out. I think there's a lot of people who do miss it out, but I would suggest that you get on and actually do that part of the professional side. Let the customer see that you're doing things the way that should be done. Lift the standard in the industry. Do these things. I recommend it. And then the application of end cap fine fabric. So if it's a blend or a natural fiber or even a synthetic fiber, the end cap fine fabric is a great product to use. It's on the acidic side, great anti-resoiling properties, but it gives you a very good clean. Now, we've got a suggestion there, the end cap fine fabric, but on a lot of synthetic fibers, you can also use the Performance Plus or otherwise the Upholstery Pre-Spray. So there's a couple of options there. A lot of people like the Performance Plus because they're using it for their carpets. In any case, it's designed for carpets and it also does a great job in upholstery. Upholstery pre-spray is really good for when you've got some, seriously soiled synthetic fibers only, especially on restaurants and dining area seating where there's a lot of heavy oils, etc. And then to finish off with the Rinse Pro. Rinse Pro is a great product to use on upholstery. I recommend using Rinse Pro on upholstery across the board. It is really, really good in bringing the pH down to under 7 on the acidic side, leaves the fabric with a good hand, does a great job at rinsing. However, I'm going to just throw one thing in there. We do get a lot of requests for advice on cleaning like cinema seating and conference room seating where the seats are not necessarily filthy dirty, but they're very high volume. A great option there is to use something like the Emulsifier Plus or the Extractor Pro, which is our two alkaline extract rinse products. One's an acid, a liquid, one's a powder, whether you're using it, depending on whether you're using a portable or a truck mount, and just use that as a single step clean for your upholstery. It actually does a great job. And the pH when you're left over is on the fabric is around about 7.5, definitely below 8. So it's leaving a synthetic fiber in a good spot. So that's only for synthetic fibers, synthetic fabrics. And then finish off with good amount of vacuum strokes, do extra vacuum strokes. And of course, if there's any naturals involved, make sure you improve the dry and add some fans onto it. Avoid putting any fabrics out in the sunlight to dry. That can definitely, while they're drying, can create crustiness in the fabrics and also can affect the coloring of the fabrics. In terms of low moisture cleaning, there's two levels of low moisture. The first is just medium low moisture. This is a system that is used by many, many cleaners when they are tackling natural fibers and also a lot of synthetic fibers, especially where there is a risk of dye running. So we started for the pre-vacuuming, and while we're talking about pre-vacuuming, make sure that the equipment you're using doesn't have any burrs on those hand tools that you're going to catch any threads and pull them. Then we pre-spray and agitate with the end cap fine fabric. So mix up a 1 in 16 mix that's around about 60 mils per liter and spray that on the fabric using a pump up sprayer or a trigger spray. Agitate it with a horsehair brush or a upholstery sponge or a bonnet pad, bonnet mitt they call them, and provide some dwell time and then rinse extract. Now you can extract only, which is what I'd recommend because we're trying to keep the process with low moisture, so no moisture at all, but you still use your same upholstery tool and you use what I refer to as a dry extract. So just dry extract, and you can towel it afterwards to get overcome that last bit of moisture, but it leaves the fabric very dry. You're not adding any extra moisture in it, and whatever the surfactant that's left in there and the emulsified soil, due to the encapsulation chemistry polymers in the end cap fine fabric, it dries down to this brittle crystal, which is later vacuumed away, released to dry vacuuming. Now, you can add a small amount of hydrogen peroxide into the end cap fine fabric, works extremely well to bring up the fibers well, helps you to overcome the spots and stains. So typically speaking, we'd add somewhere in the region of 10 to 30 mils of perox, which is a 50% hydrogen peroxide, into your ready-to-use solution. So that's 10 mils up to 30 mils of perox per liter of ready-to-use mix. The Conquer product is the Conquer Spotter is a great spotter and fully compatible with end cap fine fabric too for difficult spots and stains. The Conquer O2, which is the hydrogen peroxide version, can also be used on most of your upholstery, provided you dilute it down 1-to-1 or 50-50, half-half with water before you use it on any of your upholstery. Also completely compatible with the NCAP fine fabric. And lastly, for difficult oils, the Actichem VDS is the one to go for. Compatible with the cleaning situation, compatible with all your fabrics and fibers as well. Then the dry clean method, which uses the same product and the same process as before, except instead of using the NCAP fine fabric as a liquid, we mix it up stronger, like 1 to 4. That's 1 liter up to 5 liters of water, and whip up a foam and use the foam only. So you take the foam off the top of your whipped up mixture in a jug or a bucket, and use that foam only to clean with the aid of a horsehair brush or a sponge or a bonnet mitt. And that gives you a very, very good dry clean method. Finish up with running your dry extract with your upholstery tool and towel it at the end. So that's for super delicate upholstery, such as Asian cotton, some of your silks, and even viscose benefits from that type of dry cleaning process. So finishing off with leather, as we said, the key thing with leather is understanding as to what type of leather it is. We break it down just into 2 broad components, or 2 broad categories, I should say. Suede, nubuck, and full grain aniline leather. There's more descriptions available for those, or more detailed descriptions. But these ones are classified as raw leathers, and they should never be attempted to be cleaned with a leather cream. You will darken the leather, and that will stay permanently dark. Very, very difficult to reverse that. The NCAP fine fabric is a great product to use, and is typically used in the same method as we would a low moisture clean for a natural fiber. So mix it up 1 to 16, and I always prefer to, instead of spraying it directly onto the leather, is actually a spray applied onto a cloth, moisten a cloth out with it, and then use that to clean the leather. Constantly renewing your cloth, because you're going to get a lot of transfer of soiling, and then finally towel it off at the end. So the NCAP fine fabric diluted down up to 1 to 16, can be 1 to 10, makes a great product for cleaning these delicate leathers. Then make sure that you dry it with a good toweling. Once again, never put it in the sun to speed up drying, and avoid any direct heat as well. The pigmented leather can be cleaned with the NCAP fine fabric as well, but it can also be cleaned with a cream, such as the Actichem leather cream, which works very effectively on leather. And then you can finish off with the Actichem leather conditioner, which works well on that type of leather. I've said this several times already, but please remember to make sure that you know what type of leather you're dealing with. So to finish off, I just want to do a fresh shout out to the Carpet and Upholstery Handbook. There's also the Restoration Handbook. These books have become very, very popular. They're a free resource. They are available on the Actichem website as a downloadable item. You can also fill in an application there to have several free copies of the hard copy sent to you, full of charts and tables and information around carpet and upholstery cleaning processes, how the chemicals fit in, all written in relation to the RRCRC, or in agreement with the RRCRC standards. So make sure you get your copy today, and get copies for your technicians too. It's a great resource. It's not a catalog. It's a product that will definitely help you, even down to dilution charts, etc. So thank you very much, and we appreciate your attendance today, as always, and we'll have a look at what questions we got. So one of the first questions that we've got is just in relation to using spotters on leather. And yeah, that is a good question. The use of VDS is great for use on both the pigmented and the raw leather. However, never ever spray it directly on. It must always go on a cloth first. For general spots, the Conquer is the one to go for, once again, don't use it on direct spray. Just use it first up on a cloth, and and then and then dab it on the leather. Another question has just come through in relation to the use of hydrogen peroxide in the end cap fine fabric, and the Performance Plus, or your upholstery pre-spray. Yep, just to confirm that dilution, it is between 10 mils and 30 mils of Perox, which is a 50% hydrogen peroxide in your ready-to-use leader. Now, that can be used on the vast majority of upholstery fabrics. The most delicate and natural fibers respond well to that level of hydrogen peroxide oxidizing treatment, as do the synthetics. So thank you very much. We've sort of run a little over time. One or two other questions which we'll respond to in the white paper. So thanks again and enjoy your day.